Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I'm going to do another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have director of a new movie that's in production right now, produced by Troma, good old guys over at Troma. And the name of the movie is Sweet Meats. I have director and stand-up comedian Ricky Glore. Ricky, how you doing, my friend?
Awesome. How are you doing, sir?
Good, buddy. Thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, thank you for having me on this glorious Labor Day.
Thank you. So I have all right. So this is your second movie that you're directing. Your first movie, All Your Friends Are Dead. So tell us a little bit about Sweetmeats.
Sweetmeats, I will not candy coat this, came out of wanting to keep the momentum of doing something this summer, which was make a second feature film. So as many micro budget, no budget filmmakers, I don't like to call it indie filmmaking because anything under I think $20 million is considered indie filmmaking, and we're nowhere near that. Our first movie, All Your Friends Are Dead, cost $5,959 to make. So I like to call it micro budget slash no budget because when you're playing with that much money, it's basically no budget. But we went to Kickstarter, which we thought would be a little bit of a higher echelon, more cachet crowdfunding arena. We tried to get the fan base going for a movie we had called Open House, which in my mind, after All Your Friends Are Dead came out, something we learned was that All Your Friends Are Dead played funnier than we anticipated. And it wasn't until we had public screenings until we found that out. Now, Nick Hyance, my filmmaking partner, the other half of NKY Films, we both have done a lot of things in the comedy world. Together, we had done a cable access sketch comedy show back in the day at the beginning of college, right out of high school. But there were things in that movie that we did because it felt true to us. But then when we were watching it with an audience, the audience thought that it was funny, and not in a The Room sense where like they're laughing at the movie. Like it was good laughter, like they were laughing with the movie. And we sat there, and so the first time we had that happen was our premiere screening for All Your Friends Are Dead in Cincinnati, which was cast and crew. And when people were laughing at certain things, we were like, okay, maybe it's because they're here to have a really good time and everybody knows somebody that's in the movie and it's just a good vibe atmosphere. So then the next week we had our open public screening, and we went, and pretty much no one we knew was there, and it was a packed screening and we didn't know anybody. So there was no reason for the audience to be nice to us.
Yeah.
And we started clocking that they were laughing at the same veracity and at the same exact moments that the audience that knew us laughed at. And we're like, oh man, huh. I think this is funnier than we not necessarily intended, because we knew that there were funny moments, but we didn't think that they were going to get the response of the laughter that it got. And it was a double-edged sword because it was good and it was bad. The good was awesome. An audience really enjoys this. The bad was we had submitted, so our budget was $5,959. We spent an additional $2,000, which is almost like basically a third of our shooting budget, just to submit it to festivals to get eyes on it, because that's the hardest thing with indie movies. Who's going to see it? And after we spent that money, it's our first movie. I understand networking, and I wasn't too hurt that it didn't get into a lot of festivals. But when we ever got responses or notes back, the note was, this movie is more of a comedy, it's not a horror movie. And I was like, oh, huh. I wonder why the horror festivals in the United States are so close-minded to what it has to be. Like, oh, you have to follow this track. It just has to be blood, tits, and gore for it to be accepted as a micro-budget horror movie. Where then European, and this is, I'm not trying to make like the Europeans have it over us, but like they accepted the movie, and I was getting tweets and DMs on Instagram of just being like, hey, just saw your movie at the Fright Fest in Austria, loved it. And so like my DMs are open. If anybody listens to this and wants to send me a DM or whatever, I will happily answer. But I responded back and I was like, oh, did you think it was funny? And the people would be like, yeah, we all thought it was hilarious. And so there wasn't that language barrier, or there wasn't that issue of mixing like your peanut butter and chocolate together, that they could accept. Not that All Your Friends Are Dead, all of its technical issues aside, is as good as like a Shaun of the Dead, but they were able to not let that hinder their enjoyment of the quote unquote horror movie of it. So for Sweetmeats, it came out of, we were trying to make a movie called Open House. And so when we went to Kickstarter for that with a very minimal budget of $15,000, I thought, based off of the notes we got for All Your Friends Are Dead, I was like, well, let's be upfront. We know this movie is going to have dark comedy, it's going to have musical elements, and it's going to have horror. Let's be on Front Street. Let's tell everyone how unique this movie is. It is a dark comedy horror musical. No one wants to hear that. And like, we got really good press.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar Wright retweeted us. Mike Flanagan wrote a repost of saying like, support unique horror, and this is the kind of thing that people should be making. Roger Avery, co-writer Pulp Fiction, was just like, oh my God, the correlations between this and Motel Hell, yes, this is the kind of thing horror creators should be making. Was awesome. We got a Rue Morgue exclusive. None of that translated to people giving us money on Kickstarter. And it was an all or nothing campaign. We had the movie cast, we had the locations done, we had all of the creative elements in place. We just needed the money. And everybody who was involved with the movie knew that. We got about half of our budget on Kickstarter, and I knew we weren't going to reach our goal. And so I had to tell everyone, like, hey, we got to pull the plug. This just isn't going to happen. The good thing that happened in that was we learned that the horror community, they may enjoy a movie like that, but if Evil Dead 2 had been marketed as a comedy,
yeah,
would it have done well?
No.
I don't know. Because, you know, Evil Dead 1 had that great Stephen King quote of him giving, you know, his passing the baton to Sam Raimi of being like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen. But, and then it just made me think of like all Sam Raimi movies. Drag Me to Hell. If you watch the trailer to that, nowhere do they mention that it's a horror comedy. But if you watch the movie, very much a horror comedy.
100%.
So, yeah, and so like even that on the highest level, I was just like, oh, I was dumb to think that being transparent with how unique this thing is, it was too much medicine for the micro budget community to want to give their money to, and that's fine. The good thing was while I was putting together Open House, I started falling in love with some of the universe of the movie. And I was like, okay, so the mythology of this realty couple and this family, there's this restaurant that exists within the movies, almost like the best way I can compare it is like Nails cigarettes in Kevin Smith movies or Red Apple cigarettes in Quentin Tarantino. I had a restaurant that was specific to the world of Open House. And there was cannibalism involved. So we alluded to the restaurant selling people as meat. I was like, I have this idea that where that comes from is the restaurant started in 1978. And the founders were this family and blah, 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 blah. So I started writing a prequel to Open House that when we found out that Open House wasn't going to happen, I was like, you know, I think the prequel idea we could actually make for a more manageable budget with fewer actors, and we already had the location locked down because we were going to film a couple of days for open house at this restaurant. So the only thing I had to do was get a couple of the key cast members and the locations to agree that we could film there instead of 2 days, maybe 5 days or 6 days. And Nick Hyance, my partner, I was like, look, I know this is super depressing that the thing we thought we were going to be able to do, we're not going to be able to do. And I don't just want to pivot to a project that I don't believe in, but I think this is still a really fun, good idea that we could do. If I can make all this work, are you on board? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, doesn't seem like people want to support a horror comedy musical. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to tell them this time. We're just going to tell them that it's in the vein of like a Motel Hell and a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, because it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was not sold as a parody of basically Texas Chainsaw.
It was lighthearted. It was kind of comedy.
Well, I mean, if you watch like Motel Hell, I think it's way ahead of its time. It is satirical out the ass. So I was just talking to somebody else. The original Slumber Party Massacre was written as a parody of slasher movies. And then the studio who picked it up, who decided to produce it, were like, no, we'd rather just to make this straightforward and sell it as a slasher. But if you watch it now with that in mind, that movie was more of like a Student Bodies or Saturday the 14th or a scary movie, it is so fucking funny. Like, it is so satirical of the genre. So that's how we decided to move forward with Sweetmeats. And in the meantime, I started reaching out, and when you're a micro budget movie, you wear a lot of hats, and you're the costumer, you're the producer, you're the director, you're the actor if you have to be. Yeah. And so I reached out to Lloyd Kaufman of Troma via Twitter, and I was just like, hey, is there any chance you would want to be a cameo in our upcoming movie Sweetmeats? It's Motel Hell meets Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors. And he said, oh my God, that sounds great. Email me here. Sent me his email. Emailed him, and it just started progressing in small increments. He's like, oh, this sounds great. Send me the script. Send him the script. Great. Send me your budget breakdown. Send him my budget breakdown. And then he's like, I think this is a movie Troma wants to be part of. This fits perfectly in the kind of movie that Troma would like to do. And that's really where we're at so far with Sweetmeats, is the thing that we pivoted to do from open house has really picked up steam. And it's nice because we're getting the support from the horror community, the validation of Lloyd and Troma, that what we want to do is what we're being allowed to do, which is more of this dark humor horror. And after Lloyd read the script, he's like, yeah, he's like, regardless if Troma comes on board or not, he's like, this is what you guys should be doing. He's like, I think you guys really have something fun and unique here. And luckily, I can't thank Troma enough. What Troma will do is it'll help us get way more eyes on the project than we ever could have expected.
Especially with the Troma Now app, a streaming app. I mean, it's definitely big. I mean, to have that big producing machine behind you.
Well, and something that Nick Hyance and I had already talked about was, after kind of being a little disparaged from the festival market, was our limited experiences with watching All Your Friends Are Dead with an audience. We decided that for whatever we did next, we wanted to kind of four-wall it. That we thought the best way for people to see it was us with them. So kind of like a Kevin Smith, how he takes his movies around now, and you watch the movie and then you do a Q&A with Kevin Smith. we wanted to start a ground roots kind of grassroots, meet the fans and be there with them and enjoy the movie with them, and then they can ask us questions and meet the filmmakers, and they feel a little bit more ownership of the movie. And one of the things Lloyd said, he's like, not only do I think this is the kind of movie Sweetmeats is the kind of movie Troma should be behind, he's like, one thing we can offer is we get invited to every convention in the United States.
Really do.
Yeah, and he's like, we can screen your movie in front of a dedicated fan base at all of those conventions. And that to me, sealed the deal. I was just like, that's what we want to do. In this day and age of so many ways, so many streaming devices and things that you can watch and choices of things, figuring it's not been easier to make a thing with your phone. So anybody that says they don't know how to make a movie, they're their only excuse, because this thing
would do
there's
everything.
so many apps and things that you can do to help you make your ideas come to life. But to get it in front of anybody, yeah, you can put it on YouTube, you can put it on Tubi, but to have the assurance that our movie will be seen or screened at these conventions, I think that's worth more than any dollar amount. The craziest thing now is we still have to make the movie. We don't shoot until September 18th. So like all this pressure of like, oh, we're a Troma movie with no movie.
I was about to ask, how is it working with Lloyd?
So growing up, I would watch Troma movies, and if you watched them on the VHSs, Lloyd always had those intros where you saw him, and I was just like, who is this guy? And this is even before, like, I think maybe the only directors I knew were maybe like Alfred Hitchcock when I was little, and that was more from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, his Twilight Zone like TV show. But seeing him, I was just like, who is this spastic man who's looked like he's been 60 years old for 40 years? Yeah. He's almost like a Steve Martin, where he just, that's why he's called Uncle Lloyd. But working with Lloyd is phenomenal. I felt like a little fangirl the first time we had a conversation, and he starts every conversation the same. When he calls you, if you have his number, it appears in your phone as it does in a cell phone with caller ID, and it says Lloyd Kaufman, and it says his number from New York City. And you'll pick it up and you'll go, hey, Lloyd, how are you doing? And he goes, Lloyd Kaufman calling here from Tromaville. And I'm like, yeah, and I know it's you. We have caller ID in the future with cell phones. And my other favorite thing was he just, as a creator, he makes you feel special, and he makes you feel like you should be doing what you're doing. And there was never a hard sell. This is our second movie, and we don't even have anything to show except for a script. So the amount of support and the belief that he has in us is amazing. And he's not a dumb man. He is very smart, and he knows, as he said to us, his first advice was make your movie. He's like, you have your budget, make your movie, and then come to us. He's like, or, if you want to figure out how, Troma can be behind it and help it, great. If not, make your movie, take it to Netflix, take it to Paramount. During the strike, they're going to be wanting material. And he's like, you're going to have it. And for me, I was just like, I'm talking to Lloyd Kaufman. This is amazing. Like, you made Mother's Day, you distributed Graduation Day, like all of the Toxic Avenger obviously is the Class of Nukem Hot, like all of those things, the catalog that he has, it's crazy. But what he does know is, and he said, and he didn't even say it in conversation as like a hard sell, is Trey Parker and Matt Stone of South Park, they were taking around Cannibal the musical before South Park hit, and no one wanted to buy it. No one wanted to distribute it. And Troma took a chance and did it. Yeah. And then, like, within the next year, South Park hit like gangbusters, and Cannibal the Musical is a big hit for Troma. James Gunn, who
Yes.
James Gunn still puts Lloyd in everything. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's gonna be in whatever he does for the DCEU or the DCU.
Romeo and Juliet. You
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
it's I mean, he has this pedigree of taking a chance on people who are passionate about what they're making. Now, taste level aside, it doesn't matter because he wants to fuel people who are creative and passionate about what they want to do. And that to me is selfishly incredibly beneficial to us to have our second movie before it's even shot, to know that it's a Troma film, that 50 years from now when I'm dead, it's still going to be a Troma film, and that's mind-blowing to me.
So the fact that it's a Troma film in your script or when you start actually production, is it going to have a lot of the aspects that you expect in a Troma film? That's the ultra violence, the nudity, the of course we're gonna have some of the comedy in it. Are we expecting some of that?
So I think partly what attracted Lloyd was his love of musicals and things offbeat. So the movie itself is incredibly offbeat. Like if you watch the teaser that we did for the Indiegogo for this, um, not all like that's not necessarily what the movie's going to be, but it has a lot of elements of the vibe and the tone of the movie, the iconography of the pig mask and the butcher, and the heightened humor and satire. That'll all be in the movie. But what you see in the characters, that's not necessarily it. Production value will be much better. I wanted to lean into almost like what James Gunn did. He did a series called Porn Without the Porn with like Sasha Grey, where like Sasha Grey would go to this auto mechanic and just be like, "Oh, my car is broken down. I need someone to fix it." And like it's going to clearly turn into sex, but then it would jump 10 minutes later and it would be to the car being fixed and her being like, "Thank you so much for fixing my car. Bye." I want
No.
to do something like that where again, that was the teaser we put together was a little bit of the commentary on me being hurt a little bit that open house didn't happen, but knowing, like, understanding and recognizing, being like, okay, I get it. But what I'm going to do though is I'm going to give you what you think you want. I'm going to give you buxom women in this scene that you think is going to turn into a porn, but it's going to be way more fucked up and it's going to turn into a meat grinder dick. There's going to be the deadlights as these two girls are going to blow this guy in this butcher in this freezer of this restaurant, which the one girl says, like, I've never been in a restaurant's freezer before. It looks like a murder shed. It doesn't look like fully aware. Like some comments on the clip on YouTube were like, why would you want to support something that's so poorly edited and poorly shot? And I'm like, that's fine. Know that we're in on the joke of like
Yeah.
this, like the grindhouse nature of this, we're aware of. That's not necessarily, the movie's going to look a lot better than that. Just trying to condense the idea of the vibe, which again the script I think has, and that's why Lloyd was drawn to it. There is a lot of dark humor and the ultra violence. Like the best way to describe the movie is, I think it's Motel Hell meets Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors meets Macbeth.
Wow.
Now, when you see the movie, you will completely understand all of those elements. But I think if you're a Troma fan, it's like that Sam Raimi trailer for Drag Me to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
You watch the trailer and you're gonna be like, oh man, that looks like a badass horror movie. I'm gonna watch that. Great, if you don't know who Sam Raimi is. If you watch that trailer and you see new movie by Sam Raimi, you're gonna be like, oh man, I can't wait to see that. Sam Raimi movies are funny as hell and they're great horror movies.
Yes.
Great. We don't have that notoriety yet. So when you see what we're putting out, all I can say is there is a a slight homage to Motel Hell, that when the victims are grabbed by our character, the butcher, in the pig gas mask with the butcher coat, they are subjected to watch musical performances by one of the characters in the basement of the restaurant. The way that they are kept silent is by pliers plucking out their tongues. So in
Wow.
Motel Hell, how they're buried and their tongues are ripped, their larynxes are ripped out, and their heads are just going like that. It's very similar to like that. They're restrained in theater seats, having to watch these musical performances with their tongues ripped out. So there is a healthy montage scene of multiple people having their tongues physically ripped out of their mouths and blood spurting, and then their tongues being sold in the restaurant as something called porksicles.
Nice.
So they're tongue popsicles that they're then giving to children in 1978 to lick as a cool, delicious treat. So there is
That sounds
camp.
like trauma.
There is going to be, I mean, there is dark, fucked up shit.
Humor.
One of, we got really lucky early in the campaign. A heavy metal band, a death metal band out of New York, called Demon Scar. The lead singer, Nick Greystone, he got one of the perks to be killed in the movie. And him and I were talking. He's like, "Oh, I'm really excited. He was one of the producers on the new, the Shelley Duvall, Edward Furlong movie, Forest Hills, that's coming out."
Mm-hmm.
And him and I were talking about that. And I was telling him at that time, I'm like, I think this might turn into a Troma movie. So like the vibe of that, if that means anything to you. And he's like, "Oh my God, of course it does." He's like, "It sounds awesome." I was like, "You know what? I would love to incorporate you more in the movie. I don't know how the death will be, but we'll figure it out as we start scheduling things." And then I started thinking about it. I was like, I wonder if he'd be interested in the whole band getting killed, if that's something they would be interested in. Around that same time, he sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, I don't know what you have for music, but my band would love to maybe provide a song or two." And so I replied, I was like, "I was actually thinking about that. I had this idea for a song because I've written all the original songs that appear in the movie. I was like, I had this idea for almost like Dokken Dream Warriors-esque
Love that
song, like rock anthem that could play in the credits, called Eat the People. And would you be interested? Would your band be interested in recording it?" Sent it to him. Less than 2 days later, they had a demo back to me of this amazing sound, way better sounding than my demo song. And I was like, "Oh, is there a performance where you guys are going to be at? Would the band like to be killed in the movie and we could record the performance?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "In Lancaster, PA, we're going to be doing this show at Jason's Woods, which is like a big haunt."
Yes,
Yeah,
I've been there.
that goes on. And he's like, "I think if we clear it with them, we could record the show and then also film the whole band getting killed." And I was like, "Great. I already know how we're going to do it in the movie." It just came together just so everything, knock on wood, has been coming together very well, that I hope it is as smooth once we start filming. Like even the cast, everybody who has agreed to be in the movie, I can't wait to play with. Now, in all honesty and transparency, due to the micro budget nature, the only reason that I am a lead actor in All Your Friends Are Dead was out of necessity. It is the same for Sweetmeats. I am also playing the lead in it, not because I want to be, but because we are a micro budget movie. But I am lucky that everybody else acting around me is way better than I am.
Awesome. Now, I understand that there is an Indiegogo. It's still out. Definitely support. So tell us about some little perks that you're offering.
We're running out of the perks, which is great.
Oh, really? That's always good.
We're at 12,000 something, which our original goal was 6,000. So we've blown past that, and we're at 12,000. And with all this extra press coming out, we're going to be in demand. Which, after you reach your goal, even when the date ends for the campaign, they continue it so people can continue to get the perks. And one of the things that Troma has allowed us is we're offering a special limited edition Blu-ray of the movie that will only be offered through this Indiegogo. So Troma is going to release their own Blu-ray, but
Mhm.
they've been nice enough to let us fulfill all of our promises that we're offering through our Indiegogo. And the one thing that we're doing, like we did with All Your Friends Are Dead, is we did a special Blu-ray through Kickstarter for All Your Friends Are Dead, which was this. So if you got this through Kickstarter, that means you got a commentary track that wasn't going to exist anywhere. That is Nick Hyance and I. Nick Hyance does not do interviews. Nick Hyance is not a personality who likes to talk a lot about what he does. So getting the commentary for this is like fucking King Midas's treasure. Because when we got a distribution deal, which you'll be able to watch All Your Friends Are Dead streaming on Tubi and other platforms on September 12th. It drops. So just in a week and a half from now. SRS did this Blu-ray, which is a great release. It looks fantastic. It does not have the commentary track of Nick and I on it because we kept our promise that if you got the Kickstarter, that's the only place you're going to get it. This Indiegogo Blu-ray release, it's a limited edition. I think we only have over 100 left of it. If you get it, that's the only place you're going to hear a commentary track by Nick and I. When Troma releases it, we'll be recording a completely different commentary, and it'll probably just be me and some of the other actors or other people involved. Maybe Lloyd for the Troma one.
Would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
I would love that. That would fulfill a little bit of a nerd in me. But so that is a perk that is still available. I think we have like a little over 100 left of those. And I think we still have an associate producer credit left and two regular producer credits, which means if you pick those, any poster, Blu-ray, or IMDb, or credit in the film, your name will be listed as a producer. That means there'll be Lloyd Kaufman, Michael Hurt, a Troma-produced film, and then later, under other produced by or associated produced by, will be your name. You'll be synonymously forever tied with a Troma movie. Help us hit the $15,000. That's our next stretch goal. And grab one of those perks. We have some awesome posters that are also available with it. Digital soundtrack album. If you love the late 70s, early 80s rock country music of like Jerry Reed, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, that's kind of what the soundtrack is. Not them performing on it, because we don't have that money.
Yes.
But it's our own original songs that are in the vein of that, because I grew up watching Smokey and the Bandit, Every Which Way But Loose, and loving all that music from it.
That's awesome. Now, so guys, definitely go on to Indiegogo. Sweet meats, support. That's amazing. Now, for brand new filmmakers, because got a lot of brand new filmmakers who actually will watch my channel. What is some advice? What's one nugget you could give to them?
Do it. Again, like I said, you have your phone. The teaser for Sweetmeats, I filmed completely on my own. Again, that's not the equipment we're going to be using for the movie. But I did it with this, and I did it with, I don't know if I can grab it here. There is this chalice here, which is for smartphones, and you put it on there, and it works as a Steadicam. You don't even have to get a, and it's cheaper than like the DJI gimbal or anything. You don't have to get a gimbal. The way the stabilization works in smartphones nowadays, it is so good that if you get like a cage, you can walk around with it, and there's not going to be too much shakiness to it. Too many people get in their heads that they either don't have the equipment to make it look or sound good. On your phone, you can get Filmic Pro app, which is a fantastic filming app that you can fix the focus, you can fix the coloring, you can shoot in Vlog, which you can shoot without any color and then do the coloring later on. There's Blackmagic, which is a great editing software, which they offer free version of. You can edit on your phone with an app called Splice. My biggest advice to anybody that wants to make film, do it. If you're like, well, I don't have the actors, write something that involves just you or involves one other person. Yeah, and like make a short. Filmfreeway.com. Now, you can spend a lot of money like we did submitting something, but there are also a lot of free festivals where you can start making connections and start building up a fan base or a following, and you can join different Facebook groups. I think for Nick and I, when we made All Your Friends Are Dead a couple years ago, before we started writing it, we sat down and we said, okay, we're at that time 35 years old. Do we have any regrets in our life? We didn't have any real big regrets that we thought shadowed or loomed heavy. And we said, okay, what if 10 years from now, if we kept on the same trajectory that we're at now, would we have any regrets? And we both said, not attempting to make a 90-minute movie, which in our minds is feature length. Mm-hmm. Because we had the ability, we had the ideas. We are the only thing standing in the way of us accomplishing that. So we sat down and we went, okay, what's the story we would tell that we feel connected to and that we could do with Nick on the camera and me as an actor? We tossed out a lot of ideas. One of them was, and at that time I had a pretty big beard and long hair. We were like, all right, well, what if it's Santa versus Satan? And we looked and we were like, oh my God, that's not a title that's really been used. That's ridiculous. And so anybody watching, like, if you want to use it, use that title. Santa versus Satan. And we came up with like an Evil Dead kind of idea where this guy who is a mall Santa gets kicked out by his girlfriend and goes to this cabin in the woods, but then like unearths Satan and demons and blah, blah. Like, we're like, yeah, that's fine. We weren't emotionally connected to it. So my advice is, whatever story you think you want to tell, whether it's horror, comedy, or whatever, most people, when they're first-time filmmakers, make something that is autobiographical. And that's okay. Don't love Kevin Smith. He's a little bit more of a motivational speaker now than he is than an artist, I think. But his quote, be a why not person. Don't be a why person. There's too many why people. Too many people being like, why would you do it? Be a why not. Because you could be a, like, well, why would you do that? It's your story and who cares? And you've not lived a life. Do your story because that is what makes it personal to you. That's why he did Clerks. And that's why Clerks popped. There's a reason why Tarantino, there's a reason why Rodriguez, Richard Linklater, the film Walking and Talking with Catherine Keener, if you've not seen that. Indie films of the 90s are great examples of showing you why everyone has a voice, and it's important what your approach is to what you have to say. And again, it's not going to get easier. You don't have to buy film. You don't have to develop film. It's all mostly free space, and you have better equipment than most people have had in the last 30 years. So
I agree.
You are the only person keeping you from doing the thing that you want to do.
I agree. I mean, even when it came to this YouTube channel, I contemplated for years doing it, and then finally I said, "Fuck it, let me do it." And 6 months in, rocking and roll.
What are your favorite? What are your like 2 favorite more recent horror movies and 2 favorite like classic? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, these are my 2 favorite. I don't have to say anything new. Like, these are from 30, 40, 20 years ago. What are your like 2 more recent horror movies and 2 more classic favorite?
Okay, I talk about this a lot on my channel, and some people know what I'm talking about, and some people don't. Ti West, X, and Pearl. I think those are excellent. If the third one is as good as those 2, I mean, it might be
Maxine
or trilogies ever made.
So I watched. I was recording my second stand-up album in Utah, and the next morning I had some time, and Pearl had just came out, and the theater was showing it by me within walking distance, and I hadn't seen X.
Mhm.
My brother had seen it and really liked it, and I watched. I will admit I watched X in probably not the best way. I watched it on my phone in a hotel room, and I was like, yeah, this is okay. Like I was like, this is all right. I didn't love it, but like I enjoyed it. And then I went and saw Pearl, and there was no, it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. No one was in the theater. I had my popcorn, which I have to have popcorn while seeing a movie. And I fucking loved it. Pearl
Amazing.
blew me away.
And
And
it
I'm not a
ties in with
fan.
X.
Yeah.
And it makes
Yeah,
X
it
better.
made me like X. Yes, it made me like X more. And I had, when I watched House of the Devil, Ty West, I was like, yeah, this looks cool, but this feels like a filter. And it's like, yeah, this has a feel of like, oh, if I grabbed this off the shelf, would I have thought this was a movie from 1978 or 1982 or whatever? I was like, yeah, maybe, but like, it just didn't do a lot for me. It was more of it felt more of like an experiment of, can you make something feel like it was made long ago and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But Pearl, and my brother didn't like Pearl, and he loves X.
Really?
And I'm the exact opposite. I'm not, my brother and I do not share the same exact taste. But Pearl, just Mia Goth's performance, just the
Oh,
look of it, all of it.
oh,
I just, but I feel the same way though about Ari Aster, where Midsommar, I grew up loving Wicker Man. I did not care for Hereditary, loved Midsommar, did not like Beau is Afraid. So Robert
and
Eggers is another guy like The Witch. I've not seen Lighthouse. I still have it in a stack of DVDs behind me.
mhm.
I need to watch it, and I just haven't. I've been busy. But then I saw The Northman, and I was just like, oh my God, this is okay. So this is Hamlet. I get it. And I didn't know Hamlet was Nordic. I didn't know that's what was
Yeah.
its roots until looking up later. I just didn't love it. But now, like, I'm super excited to see Nosferatu, what he does with that.
Mhm.
So,
I'm one
yeah.
of the people that likes like you. I love Midsummer. I thought I liked it better than I did Hereditary.
And I will
People
admit
look at me
though,
like I'm crazy when I say this.
when I first saw Hereditary, I saw it in a dollar cinema or cheap cinema, and the sound was bad, the image was bad. My wife and I didn't even see the blue orb image of the
Right.
spirit, and it wasn't until I got it on Blu-ray I was like, after seeing Midsommar and loving it, loving the humor, loving the how diametrically different was that it was all during the daytime versus Hereditary is beautiful looking. Toni Collette is great. Gabriel Byrne is great. The acting is great. Midsommar, God, that opening scene of her sister with the tube
Yeah.
going to her, like all of it, and the
You had
humor
no
of it.
idea where that movie was going the whole
It,
entire time. You had no idea where that movie was going.
I was just blown away. And then so I was like, all right, I got to give Hereditary another chance. Got the Blu-ray, and then seeing the blue orb, and then some other things, seeing it in a better way than when we saw it at that bad theater. Um, I enjoyed it more, but it was that case of a movie where being someone who loves Rosemary's, so it's so weird. Being someone who loves Rosemary's Baby, Hereditary, I counted against it because I was like, yeah, but you're not Rosemary's Baby. Where Midsommar, I can love the original Wicker Man
Hmm.
and recognize that Midsommar is also a folk horror movie, but love them both for their own reasons. But
Yes.
Hereditary, for some reason, I'm just like, I feel like you're almost Rosemary's Baby, but you're not. And
And this, I mean, I've heard that a lot of people love that movie. I'm not saying I hate the movie, but I never like when I hear the same people who
you're just
say,
not connecting with it in the same way.
yeah, because when I hear the same people bash Midsummer, but say, oh, well, Hereditary was great. I'm like, uh, Midsummer was, in my mind, Midsummer was a masterpiece um, of a horror flick, and it came out of nowhere. and Hereditary, it was a good movie, but not.
It just didn't connect in the
Yeah.
same way. So the Babadook is one. I mean, we're just talking about now the more modern, and I want to hear your two classic picks. But the Babadook, I would have liked for me more if the monster was real and less of a metaphor. I think the metaphor is fine for the loss of the husband, but I would have liked for the monster to have been real, more of like a Freddy Krueger or more of like this like dark entity. And then where like so similarly for me for with Midsommar, the pleasure centers that hit are what Get Out hit. So like Get
Mhm.
Out, how funny it was, but then how suspenseful it was. I was just like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
amazing. The roller coaster of funny and like horror that it can put me on. But then I didn't care for Nope. And I really like I really didn't care for Nope and I didn't care for Us. So
Watch my video on. I did a video a couple months ago. Who are Jordan Peele movies for? I did it because I'm not a Jordan Peele fan. Get Out, masterpiece, great. Everything else from then, I don't. People say, "Oh my goodness, Jordan Peele, all of his movies are masterpieces, greatest horror director," and I'm like, "Are you just saying that because that's the cool thing to say, or something, or like, do you actually believe that?" I do respect him as a director, as not only that, as a black director, I respect him, but I'm not a
and
fan of.
as
I'm
a
not a fan of
smart
any of his
and
movies.
he's smart and he's got a
Yes,
visual eye. And like Nope, I could recognize the Spielberg influences and like the act like there was good acting, but I just didn't have and I think what we're both saying is how we connect emotionally to the characters. And for me, that was lost in his next two films where I just like Danny in Midsommar, that relationship between her and her boyfriend, that they're her boyfriend is kind of an asshole, but he's not a bad guy to her. They're
hmm,
just not right for each other. And based on the circumstances, they shouldn't be together. But
correct.
because of like what happens, it's it's so awkward, but it's so funny. Even to when he is having sex with the girl and all the women are like forcing him and like
Hmm.
into her. There's things that are so funny in that I connect to the characters that I feel cold about the characters in Us and in Nope.
But like in Midsummer, like what you just brought up, every single one of us has been in a relationship that you don't want to be in, but you don't want to leave. You know what I mean? Something
For
happens with
whatever reason. Either
whatever
you want
reason.
to keep on
Their
having regular
mother just passed
sex
away.
or
Their
yeah.
mother just passed away, or they're going through some shit, and you're like, "Son of a bitch! I was about to break up with you, but this happened."
Hmm. But and it's what's interesting about that movie though from a creative standpoint is Ari Aster, that was a movie for hire.
Hmm.
He had a film group in that approached him and said, "We would like to commission you to make a full core movie." And he's like, "Well, I had this idea of this breakup, and I was thinking about making a horror movie, and I guess I could make this a full core movie." But then the thing that he wanted to make was Beau is Afraid. That was his next. Beau is Afraid is technically his second movie that he wanted to make.
Okay.
And like, I didn't connect. And like, I've watched all of Ari Aster's shorts. Trouble with the Johnsons, Munchausen. If you've not watched his shorts, they will fuck you up. Like they are not. Uh, I don't know how you are with Darren Aronofsky, but Darren Aronofsky, I love Requiem for a Dream and Pie.
Yeah.
I will never watch them again
Same way.
because of just how viscerally bad it makes me feel. Like Black Swan and like The Wrestler, I can watch again because there's a little bit more for me. It just isn't just so depressive. I've never seen Mother, which
Oh,
um, Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. But I
Okay.
feel the same way about the Terrifier movies.
Yeah.
It makes you feel well, it's supposed to make you feel disgusting. I mean, I just felt. I remember I saw Terrifier 2. I probably saw it many times. So I remember seeing Terrifier 2 when it was in. I actually saw it in the theaters, and it was like limited release. And I was never a fan of the first one, but I kept hearing everybody saying that Terrifier 2 was so much better story development, and it was. But it's one of those movies that like it makes you feel sick
Mm-hmm.
after you leave because there's no uplifting to it. It's nothing uplifting to it. It's nothing. It's just vile for 3 hours or how long it was.
It,
But I understand what you mean.
but those movies are hard, and so I just recently, within the last year, with trying to explore more of the exploitation uh, genre, I came across Thriller: A Cruel Picture, which was a '70s exploitation movie where the original cut was banned and it contains actual sex scenes. So it contains penetrative sex that you
Wow.
see. And the first time I watched it was with my dad and my brother. And like when that starts, we were like, oh, we're just all watching porn together. Like
That's
that's what we're
awkward.
watching. And like rape is involved. And so similarly, the first time I ever watched I Spit on Your Grave was probably about 5 years ago
Same
with
here.
with my brother and my dad. And that's a movie that's hard to get excited to watch. And again for me, and no judgment, because of it's predicated on being known for its rape scene, for its
Mhm.
extensive hard rape. And so, being someone who grew up on Last House on the Left, um, Wes Craven being one of my favorite horror filmmakers,
Mine too.
I People Under the Stairs. I mean, not that Jordan Peele should, because he carries the smart black director card. I would love to see what he'd do with the People Under the Stairs.
No, I don't want. I don't want him.
No,
No, I
based
don't
on
want.
what he's done,
Please, please,
with Us and Nope,
please.
you're like no.
No, don't touch that. Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost like how I feel about David Gordon Green touching Exorcist. Like it's like no.
Yeah, I don't. People are all excited. I'm like, you want to see a good Exorcist sequel that isn't talked about? Exorcist 3.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, like if
But
you're or I've heard the TV series with why am I blanking on her name? Um A League of Their Own and The Fly. Oh my God. I'm gonna lose all credibility. It ends up being revealed that she's Reagan at the end of the series. I heard that is very good.
really,
Uh like so watch that. And I love Danny McBride. Like what he's doing with Righteous Gemstones, I think is fucking amazing.
hmm
That Halloween trilogy, I when that first one came out, I was just like, I don't know why we're doing this.
I
And then
like the first one. I actually like the first one, but it
but
should have
then
ended there.
but then the reason why they did that first one of the new ones was to get rid of the sequels 2 and on, so they would have a Michael Myers that was no longer supernatural. But then in 2, in Halloween Kills, they make him supernatural.
They
And
should
it's
have
like,
ended with the first one. It should have just been,
or
and then
there's a great, it's not a good quote unquote movie, but the John Carpenter script for Halloween 4 that he proposed back in the day before Mustafa Akkad made the Return of Michael Myers that they made with Daniel Harris and everything, was part of the idea was that Michael Myers was an idea, that he was a man that was killed who did the horrific things that he did on Halloween night in Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, which was more the night that he came home at the hospital. So Halloween 4 was going to be the return to Haddonfield, where Halloween, almost like Footloose, had been canceled. We do not celebrate Halloween. And so there's a little bit of elements of this in the Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers,
Hmm.
or Halloween 666, a producer's cut of whatever you want to call it.
I actually enjoyed that one too.
Yeah, I look, I like Thorn. I like the storyline of the
Hmm.
cult that makes Michael impregnate his niece. Like,
Yes.
I'm not saying I like that, but like I like the weirdness of it, and
Yeah.
like I like cults. Like I said, I like Rosemary's Baby. I like Wicker Man. I like The Blood on Satan's Claw. I love cult movies. Um, but John Carpenter's original script to Return to Haddonfield involved more of the horror of propaganda, of the fear and the fear based of you can't do this thing because it will bring this evil entity, and we just can't do it. But when you suppress something, that makes the evil bubble even more and get even stronger, which is kind of like what they did with Freddy versus Jason and the idea of Freddy
Yep.
being suppressed, that if you start speaking his name, it's going to give him power. Now, where John Carpenter's Halloween 4 script went off the fucking rails was in the second act. A kaiju sized Michael Myers grew and started walking across Haddonfield like
Wow.
Godzilla. And like, you're fucking insane. You're so high, John Carpenter. But like the idea that is not bad, that when they brought him back for Halloween, was it 2018 or 2017?
2018.
Okay. I thought that's where they were going, was for Halloween Kills and then Halloween Ends. It was gonna be more of the fear of we should be afraid and we
Of the
should take away
boogeyman.
people's right. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot smarter, and then when it wasn't, and then I heard the story, and who knows how hypocritical this is, that David Gordon Green, uh, when they went to Jason Blum, they're like, we got these two script ideas for Halloween, and Jason Blum's like, no, you have three ideas, and he's like, no, we have two ideas. He's like, you got to make three movies because nobody just makes two movies. You got to give me a trilogy. So they're like, all right, I guess we'll take part of this and
Pull some bullshit together, and
yeah. But
because the
okay,
first one was great. It wasn't perfect, but it was a great 2000,
I will
2018 should
argue
have ended.
that movie has and I've said this before, and this is just my opinion. That movie has its cake and eats it too, because there's no way you can watch it as a viewer of the Halloween movies, as a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode, and not know that she fought Michael in Halloween 1, 2, and H2O, and that her lineage of her daughter was in 4, 5, and 6. There's no way you can erase that, even if storyline you're saying those things didn't happen.
Hmm.
Now, how is that bitch so crazy in Halloween 2018 that she's Ripley from Aliens when that thing only happened to her once 30,
True.
40 years ago in 1978? She
That's
got
true.
three friends that got killed. That's not going to make you that crazy. But we accept it because we know that she went through it in other movies, even though they're saying those movies didn't happen.
Correct.
So, what are your two favorite classics?
John Carpenter Halloween 1978. That's number one. Number two for me is one that most people don't say. Henry, the Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh, you're fucked up.
Yeah,
You're dark. You're a dark human being.
I love that movie.
There's not many movies that make me feel skeevy. And
Mhm.
like uh his portrayal in that, I I genuinely felt dirty after watching that movie. Like that, there's not many movies that just make me feel gross. And that movie definitely did it. So
And, and I saw that movie growing up as a kid. Great parents, but no, I'm joking.
no, I mean,
But,
I was seeing.
I,
I saw everything that I saw was that way. My first memories of watching a movie are sitting at the foot of my parents' bed. They thought I was asleep, and they
Mhm.
popped in. I was probably 3. They popped in A Nightmare on Elm Street, and like I remember just like, watching the whole thing.
But here's the crazy thing about it. I tell people all the time, I was like, I never seen Wizard of Oz as a kid. I never seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate. I never seen a Disney movie as a kid. But I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw all the Nightmare on the Streets, all the Friday 13th. And it was because we had one VCR and Saturday night was movie night. So we got to watch horror movies and Jean-Claude Van Damme action movies, which is why I'm a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan too.
I just became a Jean-Claude Van Damme. So my partner, Nick Hyance, who did grow up watching those, whenever we have a movie night, we watch a different Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. And oh my God, what's the one where he plays his own twin brother?
Double Team. Double Impact. Double Impact.
That is my favorite, I think, because I think it's only his like third movie starring, and like he had that much power that he could play the two leads, and he gets a story by credit. So good.
Bloodsport is my favorite.
Bloodsport's so good.
It is my favorite movie.
I love Time Cop. Jean-Claude is, I think, a underrated.
He really is. I mean, he really is. People they say Sylvester Stallone. What's a Arnold Schwarzenegger, and some people say Steven Seagal, which I never liked a Steven Seagal movie ever, not one. Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, his movies from that late '80s to that mid '90s, Jean-Claude Van Damme was cranking out fucking banger fucking action movies.
Lionheart,
excellent. Death Warrant, Cyborg. I mean,
but Lionheart, the story is his brother gets set on fire and killed in a drug deal gone wrong.
Correct.
But he's definitely he's dealing with nefarious people, and he's dealing drugs. So Jean-Claude Van Damme's character hears about this, and he's fighting in the Foreign Legion, or he's in the army. He goes AWOL. Yeah, because they won't let him leave. And he gets to New York, but his brother's in LA. So to get to LA, he starts an underground bare knuckle fighting ring. Okay. He somehow, even though he doesn't have a passport, flies from New York to LA, even though they don't show us how it happens. Then he gets to LA, and you're like, oh, this is it. He's going to find out who killed his brother, and he's going to exact revenge.
He doesn't.
No, he goes to the hospital, and the doctor's like, oh, I think LAPD arrested all the men that did this to your brother.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he's like, oh, that is great to hear. I guess I will keep on fighting. And like, he's done. He believes in the judicial system that they're going to follow through and give these bad guys.
I remember watching that movie back when it came out. I was like, oh, this is going to be him fighting revenge. To get and find revenge. And no, it's just, yes, they find
it's
the killers.
It's somehow going to be that the drug dealers are connected to the
fighting ring.
To the fighting ring, right. And it's all going to pull together and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, nope. They get rid of that storyline so quickly. But what I love is, again, me and Nick fucking love watching these movies, and we don't make fun of them. Like, we just enjoy them. And Jean-Claude, if you remember now we're just talking about Lionheart. In New York City, the woman who bankrolls him, that he ends up fighting for,
yes,
who ends up screwing him,
yes,
or not, they don't have sex, because it's great. She's constantly trying to have sex with him, and he turns down her advances. And so we're like, why?
She's hot.
She's beautiful. She's powerful. She's like naked in his bed at one point.
He has nothing. Nothing.
And when it got to the end of the movie where she ends up being bad and she ends up turning on him, which again is not mentioned earlier in the movie, I said to Nick, I was like, you know what this means? That Jean-Claude, they're like, yeah, and then you have sex with this woman. He's like, no, I cannot have sex with her. She is a bad person. And it's like, well, you know that, Jean, because you read the whole script. You know where she's like, no, my character, he would not have that. She is not a good person.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme, I watched a whole documentary. I watched billions of them. I love Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Hard Target, so good. In Louisiana.
Hard Target was great.
Him with a Louisiana accent.
And when he punches the snake, oh my goodness, that was perfect.
So good.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, love him. I had a chance to meet him at one of these conventions. Got a custom Funko Pop made and everything, and he had a family emergency or something. I was like, son of a bitch, come on, John, you still showed up to the convention.
He had a family emergency. He had to go to the White Alps.
But I can't watch none of his newer movies. I mean, it's just straight garbage. I can't watch. I think the last one that I actually enjoyed was Expendables 2. Like, see him fight against Sylvester Stallone at the end. See, we went from talking about favorite horror to Jean-Claude Van Damme. You see how quick? You see how quick these interviews can go?
When you grew up with video stores, that's the thing. And I hate to boomer or millennial. That's the one thing like that I feel bad that my daughter's not going to have, is that everything is so impatiently at your fingertips, where she's never going to have that Sophie's Choice of at the video store, the mom and pop. Ours was Showtime Video in Alexandria, Kentucky. And you had them in front of you, and your parents said, pick one. You had them for 2 nights. Pick one movie. And you had to go, is it this one or is it this one? And it could have been a turd burglar. You didn't know. But so you would pick the Jean-Claude. You would pick the bad horror movie that had amazing box art.
Yes.
And then you would go, okay, next weekend, if I fucked up with this one, I guess I'll pick this one if it's there. But then if you go back and that one's not there, and you go, all right, now I got to look at it. I got to look at them more, and I got to see. Yeah, I loved going to the video store for that exact reason.
Me too. Someone once said, I forgot who said this recently. Someone said, when it comes to a no-budget movie or an indie movie, horror movie, the better the poster is, or the Western call it, the shittier the movie's going to be.
Eli Roth had us a thing when he talks about going to the video store as a kid, is the bigger the box, the worse the movie. But it would draw your eye like a perfect, like Microwave Massacre. The movie is dog shit. But the box was so big.
Humongous.
But then there was movies like, I remember my brother and I went, and the owner of the video store, the mom and pop, knew my parents. And they knew the kind of shit my parents would let us rent. So even if we weren't with our parents, Dan would let us rent whatever. And so we rented The Gate and The Gate 2. And like, if you've not seen The Gate and The Gate 2, chef's kiss of just 80s horror movies. So good. The artwork, the only movie my mom never let me rent, which was weird, was the movie My Boyfriend's Back. And it was rated R, and she saw one of the trailers that was shown on TV where that had like a sex joke that she didn't like about like blowjobs or something. And she's just like, you're not watching that. And I'm like, I've seen The Hills Have Eyes. I've seen Faces of Death. I think I can handle this R-rated titty comedy.
I did a video too when I first started that I said, kids of today won't know the fun of when you turn 18 and you were able to get your own fucking video card. Like, that was like, at 18, there was nothing else you could receive but that video card. And I was even talking about, like, somebody asked me one on the interview, what was the first thing I rented? And I was like, it was definitely a porno, because like I was always in the video store with my parents, and I would see that red fucking curtain in the back, and I would see the perverts coming in and out. I was like, what the fuck's back there? I know it's back there. And they're like, I tell you, I got a chance to go back there. And I was one of those perverts for the day, know? So, yeah.
You weren't a pervert. You were just a normal adolescent who was just like, I need to get off. Like, and
I'm curious what is back here. What's been back here ever since I was 5 years old. I've seen the guys go back and forth. Always been curious to see what's back there.
Well, and like the one thing is with pornos that weren't with the horror movies was the horror movies, we would get titillated. Like, I remember watching the Hammer horror movies with Christopher Lee, and like each one of those, the women got more buxom. And I just remember being just so horny while watching those, or seeing like the fearless vampire lovers, or anything with Ingrid Pitt, and being like, why are these movies so titillating, but then they do something so horrific to be such a boner killer?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even realize that that was something they were saying. That was a commentary that they were saying, the juxtaposition between sex and violence.
Yes.
That then when I watched a porn for the first time, I was waiting for them to get killed after they had sex. And I was just like, oh, wait, no. Oh, they're not gonna get killed? Oh, they just put on their clothes and they just go on without their day? Like, okay. No one comes in with a
But
mask or a chainsaw?
but if you watch porn, porn is extremely violent. It is.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing nice about porn. It's extremely violent. It's boom, 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 boom. Like it is extremely violent. So like people who get into that, it's like, whoa,
But
it's
I grew up,
interesting.
so I did like the first porns I found were, I mean, like the movies I watched were my dad's porns of like
Yeah, it's just
Taboo and Debbie Does Dallas and Behind the Green Door or Marilyn Chambers or Inside Desiree Cousteau. Um, there was a point though when I was watching those that I kind of thought, I was like, I wonder how many of these people that I'm jerking off to are dead.
majority of them are, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, Ricky,
Oh, is that where we're
it's,
ending it? How many of these people am I jerking off to are dead? That's the
it,
full quote.
but listen, we went from talking about trauma to horror movies to John Claude Van Damme movies to porn. We just went all around. So tell everyone how they can find you.
That's such a stalkery question. How can they find me?
Yes, address.
Twitter, yeah, I can be found anywhere. I'm very fortunate. Unlike a good friend of mine that I was in first grade with, I'm really fortunate that my friend group are people that I've known since I was like 5 and 6. I don't know if that means I'm not a friendly person, that you either had to get to know me young and then I don't expand my circle. But I am fortunate that my friend group is 6 solid friends from when I was young. But he's a writer named Eric Hunter. He has to use his middle initial, Eric M. Hunter. He's a horror writer
Hmm.
because if you Google him, gay porn stars will pop up, like a, a dearth of like things that like before you get to him. I'm really fortunate. If you Google my name, I'm the only thing that appears. But so you can find me on Twitter at Ricky Glore, Instagram at Glore Ricky, or Facebook. Add me on my comedy page or my personal page. I used to care. I don't care anymore. You have any questions about anything, send me a message. It may take me a couple of days, but I'm always happy to respond. And just follow us on our journey. Any idea that you have that you want to make, you can make it a reality, and use the internet for good and find people that are like-minded and in your area that want to support making dreams happen. And that's that's where we've gotten lucky, is we each project that we do, we've connected with people who either do something that we're not good at, so like special effects or sound recording or music. Our community and our tribe or whatever grows bigger and bigger each project we do and gets better and better, that we're
It's all
hoping.
about networking.
Yeah, and we're
It
hoping,
really.
be humble enough, and I didn't say this before, indie film or micro budget, you have to be willing to, you can have an idea of the thing you want to make, and I like to look at it like a puzzle. But with micro budget or indie filmmaking, you're still putting together the puzzle throughout the process. When you're filming it, when you're writing it, when you're filming it, when you're editing it, you have to be willing to let the image change. The pieces are still the same, but the image might not be that thing you thought it was going to be at the beginning, and you have to be willing to let it evolve, because that's the nature of the beast. I think whether you have $1 million or $10,
Mhm.
you just have to be able to collaborate with the people that you trust, that are helping your dream come to life. And I think I think you'll be happy by the end of the day if you don't hold on to what you think it has to be.
Yes.
Yeah, collaborate. Even though I do stand-up's not my favorite form of artistic expression. I love collaborating. I love playing with others, and I can't wait to see a year from now what Sweetmeats becomes.
Well, I definitely want to have you come back on in a year because this was a blast, man. It was definitely fun.
I'll be happy to send you a screener link of what the movie looks like and just be like, man, who knew that this is what it was going to be like?
Yeah.
Don't know if anybody's going to like this.
I don't know.
How did we get Jean-Claude Van Damme to make an appearance in the movie?
And he's actually looking for revenge in this one. That would be amazing if you sent me the screener and Jean-Claude Van Damme was in it.
Look, one of the movies that Nick and I have proposed is a single movie, an hour-and-a-half movie that contains 3 installments of a sequel in one movie. It doesn't make any sense, but if we got Jean-Claude Van Damme, we want to make a 90s Jean-Claude Van Damme action movie, and if we could make it with him, that'd be another dream.
Amazing. It'd be amazing, man. It'd be amazing. I'm telling you, it's up my list to meet Jean-Claude Van Damme. So, the Jean-Claude Van Damme, you're not watching this video, but if you are, please. All right, my friend. It was a pleasure having you on, man. This was definitely fun.
Thank you, sir.
Everyone, definitely check out Ricky Glor's Sweet. What did I say? Sweet Tooth. I was watching the Twisted Metal series and got Sweet Tooth in my brain. Sweetmeats. Definitely check it out. Indiegogo got some awesome perks in there. The limited edition DVD with the commentary, as well as you got executive producer, a little bit of everything. And it's backed by Troma, so you know that shit's going to be good. All right. Well, Ricky, it's a pleasure. Everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.